Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. I'm here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which is actually very close to my house. Although I'm not going home right yet. I got a load on my back that I'm dropping. It's about 6:45. I got to drop this load at 11 p.m. at an Aldi distribution center down in Frederick, Maryland. And then I just got a message that I gotta take the empty, because I shouldn't have said drop, it's live unload, but I gotta take the empty over to Hershey, Pennsylvania. So I'm guessing to Hershey, since they do a lot of candy goes out refrigerated, of course. But anyway, I was thinking about talking about the Battle of Gettysburg, which, is obviously a huge thing. But I think I'll hold off on that, because the campaign, that Gettysburg campaign, began around June 1st in 1863. And then, of course, it culminated really around, I guess, the 4th of July. Maybe the 5th of July, depending on what you consider the end of a campaign. Of course, the battle was on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of July in 1863. But I'm going to talk about that in over the next little bit when I come back from home time. I'll be back on the road on Tuesday, June 1st. But after I get all this other stuff taken care of. But I did want to share a couple of things about Pennsylvania that you may not know. First of all, it's not a state, it's a commonwealth. And for many, many years, there was a law in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, that no building in the city could be taller than City Hall. And of course, William Penn is on top of Philadelphia City Hall. And then I think they finally realized, that's probably not a good way to grow our city. So that's why now there's like big tall buildings, skyscrapers, whatever you want to call them, in Center City, Philadelphia. But that is still the law in Washington, D.C. No buildings can be taller than the Washington Monument, which is kind of why D.C. just resembles an enormous suburban office park with like lots of monuments and stuff. Although D.C. is also trying to get that amended, but I think it's a bigger thing than just the city doing anything about it. So anyway, that's one thing about Pennsylvania and DC. Another thing you may not know is the Susquehanna River, which actually has its headwaters up in New York, flows into the Chesapeake Bay. But the noteworthy thing about the Susquehanna, which goes through Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state capital, is that it has the largest outflow of any river that empties into the Chesapeake Bay. So some of the other rivers whose names you may recognize are the Potomac River, which comes through D.C., Washington, D.C., and where Mount Vernon is on the Potomac, if you've ever been there. The Rappahannock River, the York River, which goes near Yorktown, the James River, which goes through Richmond and then empties out into the Chesapeake Bay. The Elizabeth River, which is a smaller river that kind of separates Norfolk and Portsmouth, Virginia. All of those rivers have less outflow than does the Susquehanna. And it's also interesting that the Shenandoah River, which has created the Shenandoah Valley, so if you've ever driven 81 through Virginia, you've gotten to partake of the awesome scenery that the Shenandoah Valley has to offer. But the Shenandoah River empties into the Potomac River at Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. So a little bit about the rivers that empty into the Chesapeake Bay, which, by the way, is not, it is a bay, because that's what we call it, but it's actually an estuary, and it's the world's second largest estuary. And those are great places for finding seafood. Another interesting fact that may really be of interest to you if you drive a truck or even if you drive a car through Pennsylvania. The only law enforcement agency in Pennsylvania that's authorized to run speed detecting radar is the Pennsylvania State Police. Local departments, whether they're sheriff's departments, and they even have this thing called regional police, where there's several townships that have one like police department, so maybe 4 or 5 townships. Local police, none of them are authorized to run radar. So why do they pull people over? How do they pull people over? Well, it's interesting because what they do is, if you drive through PA, and I'm right here by US 15, you'll see big white lines just painted, and they'll usually be 50 yards apart, maybe 100 yards apart. But those big white lines are for them to time you with a stopwatch. And basically, they know what time they're looking for, and if you're faster than that, they know what speed you're at, and that's enough for them to pull you over. They also pace people. So they're allowed to pace people, they're allowed to time people. They can't use radar. The other thing that is endemic in Pennsylvania is that police pull you over for like a missing, like I've been pulled over in Pennsylvania because I did not have, in my Honda Civic, because my license plate light was out. In some states, nobody gives a crap about that. But if you have a headlight out, you have a tail light, even like one of your brake lights doesn't come on, they'll pull you over for it. That's how they generate revenue. And there's even a town here, it's not York Springs. Anyway, it's right south of Carlisle on Pennsylvania Highway. Well, it's Pennsylvania Highway 34. And Pennsylvania Highway 94 run in there. But there's some pickups and stuff. There's like some beverage companies. There's different industrial things. But this town, and I apologize, I can't remember the name of it. It's a small town, but they have a police department, and they even have a commercial enforcement like officer, and he has a commercial enforcement vehicle. It's a van, and I've only run through there once when I was with Knight to do a pickup at I think it's like 7-Up or somebody. I can't remember exactly who's out there, but they make money off of commercial enforcement. And in fact, that town creates so much revenue from fines that they showed up on a national list of the top local jurisdictions when it comes to traffic citations. So just be aware of that. So real quick, I wanted to talk about the employment situation. And I've said this in the past that driving a truck can be a great way to start a career that can be lucrative. It's also a great entry-level job for people who have the right criteria, right? Like they can't be potheads, and they can't have had a bunch of DUIs or whatever. And and we all know it's not for everybody, right? The lifestyle or just the commitment. But a CDL can be a lucrative thing to have in your wallet and use for work. And my son and I were actually talking about the employment situation, and I mentioned to him that I was watching one of Prime's driver meetings, and one of the people that was on one of the Prime driver meetings that I saw was a representative from Pilot Flying J. And he mentioned that, they were trying to do some stuff, but they, needed to be able to hire the people to do it. And, the guy from Prime, and I think he was the guy that maybe is over, fuel negotiations. I can't remember. I apologize. I can't remember his name. But he kind of chuckled, and he's like, well, good luck with that. And obviously the trucking industry knows what it's like to try to recruit qualified people, and then also how to retain them. You know, it's a huge issue. And it's been estimated that that turnover in the trucking industry can cost a trucking company as much as like 20 basis points of their operating ratio. So that can be significant. That could be a lot of money in a given year to recruit, to fix your retention problems, and to constantly recruit. And I got to thinking, you know, the first thing that went through my mind for the pilot Flying J guy was, well, why don't you pay people more? You have a business model that's predicated on having workers who, you know, show up on time and do a good job. And I see, you know, I go in truck stops and I see there's no truck stop company, none of the big ones, that aren't hiring. But some of the wages that they offer, you know, like for tire technicians, I'm like, and by the way, I had a guy, you know, if you follow along with us, and by the way, thanks so much to our subscribers. We're 200 plus now, so that's really cool. But if you watch, you know, I had a flat tire, I don't know, a week ago over in Missouri, and we were on the side of the road, and you know, the guy that came out was like, he got there super fast, and I tried to help him by getting the spare out from under the trailer, and he was like, yeah, be careful, this grass, you know, it's water moccasin mating season, and I was changing a tire at this other place, and I saw a water moccasin, and you know, and I'm like, this guy isn't even, you know, a starting tire tech. What are they getting? $12 an hour? They're risking their lives doing a hard job, a job that I actually don't know how to do. Like, I don't know how to properly mount a semi tire on a rim and do what I'm supposed to do, you know? And this is hard work. Sometimes it's in crap conditions, right? It's like on the side of a road where the shoulder's really not big enough, and it's either cold as hell out and dangerous conditions anyway, or it's hot as hell out, or there's like water moccasins sneaking up behind you, or some other, you know, fire ants, whatever's in the shoulder. I mean, and they're like, oh, we don't understand why we can't get anybody. Well, maybe because you don't value them enough, you know, and it's not worth it to risk your life to go out on a highway. And by the way, I do think that I've heard that people get paid a little bit more when they go out on a road call. But regardless, even if I was in the shop getting that tire changed, I want him to be done quickly, but I want it to be done right. It's a skill. It's skilled labor, and I, by the way, you know, I'm trusting this guy to do it right. You know, I go in there and get tires replaced. I don't want some chucklehead that doesn't do it right putting those tires on, because I don't want to be going 60 miles an hour and just crap starts flying off my rims, or the rim flies off the axle. You know, so what we value is, you know, are people that doing things for us, but we don't pay them like we value them. And can I do anything about how much Loves or Flying J pays? No. But my message to people who think, oh, all these people are collecting unemployment and stuff, I just don't buy that. I've been on unemployment once. It's really just not, it's not enough, right? Like I think it would be exceedingly rare that somebody would be sitting around, because it's only designed to be 60% of what you were making, right? And so it's not enough. People may have side gigs, and it goes away after 26 weeks in many cases. And it's not the stimulus money. Like people use the stimulus money just to survive because they owe their landlord 4 months of rent or something. You know, what it is we don't value the people that we need the most in this country. And I'm not really talking about truck drivers. Truck drivers have some leverage. But I'm talking about all those service employees. You know, I'm talking about the guy at the Loves in Dandridge, Tennessee, that at 3 o'clock in the morning, I pulled my trailer in because I had done a post trip. And so I knew that I needed a tire on this trailer because there was a big chunk out of it. And I'm like, this thing's going to go. So he's there for me. That guy, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's making, and he isn't even making $15 an hour. And I'm trusting him to do a good job. So if you're blue collar, you know what I'm talking about. But also, no matter what your station in life is, you need to speak up for the people that you rely on. You need, you know, home health care workers, people that work in restaurants, people that change tires on the side of the road to keep us moving. You know, whatever it is, right? People probably aren't getting paid enough for it. And it's about time that industry realizes. I hope industry suffers because they haven't gotten this yet. I hope that CEOs realize that there's more to life than working. And there's especially more to life than working for less than you're worth. And when the CEO can still get a pay raise every year, but then you're like, oh, dude, we could give you 30 cents an hour more. That's just ridiculous, you know? And so don't be surprised if this is a continuing theme in the economy. People would rather just work in like the gig economy or on the side than work for a company that doesn't value them, but then is unhappy when they won't come back, you know, then they decided not to come back to work. So thanks for listening to my TED Talk. Thanks for listening to my rant. Be safe out there. Like I said before, have an honorable Memorial Day, and we'll circle back with you next week. Take care. Bye.